What up, team? Welcome to another Mindful Monday here, our kind of bi-weekly little program we like to run to focus on things other than just the physical and components that we like to work on, obviously, in our workouts, but start to teach and learn some skills on the mindful side of things as well, where we can really continue to be our best and achieve our full potential. And last week we talked a little bit about fear, and this is that part two of three, we'll say, with our fear topic. And we asked you to start recognizing where fear is taking a role in your life, and is it falling under a different name like anxiety, like doubt, like having a low self-esteem. Fear, it plays an active role in all these things as we discussed, but today we want to look a little bit more into how that fear actually is running in a cyclical process in your life, and how next week we'll then look at how we can interdict into that loop and really start making a change. But I thought the best way to maybe go through this today would be to have a bit of a personal experience. I think far too often when we see videos like this, it's projecting what to do, projecting how to move forward and all these skills, but it's important to recognize that, I mean, we've all had to go through this process. The whole reason why I got passionate about doing this was because I recognized things within myself that I wanted to be better at as well, in areas I needed to improve upon and for my development. And fear was a big one. And for me, it was when I was growing up, is fear of not being liked by people, not being able to make friends, kind of in my developmental years, and it really led to me adjusting and adapting who I was to try and be more like the people I wanted to be friends with or be around. And there's an element of that when you want to make people happy, that's good, but as long as it's not the sacrifice of who you are, right, and your character and your morals and things of that nature. And I had a good moral foundation, but I started to recognize that I wasn't my most happy. I wasn't being who I thought I could be or should be, and it wasn't until I started to really look at fear in my life as to, like, why am I like this, or what started. And it was fear. It was fear of not being accepted. It was fear of only being liked at certain points. For me, it was like gym class or athletics. I felt that was the only place I could make friends. And as you'll see in this fear loop when we go through it, I'll walk you through it here with my experience, how it continued to feed itself and continue to keep me in this process for years and years until I decided to make a change for myself. So let's look at how fear plays a role in this loop here. So here's the image of the fear loop, and it starts with that false belief or limiting belief. And this is something that's just simply not true about ourselves. And so for me, it was, again, I'm not liked, I'm not able to make friends outside of gym class or sport. But that was that false belief, which is then supported, when we look to the other side, that weak self-concept. So for me, that was having low confidence, doubting myself, doubting who I was as a person, that I'm likable. So that was something I needed to work on. And then underneath that, this is always fed with that negative self-talk. Those kind of go hand in hand, because once we start heading down that slippery slopes, things can kind of get out of control if we're not careful, because we can be our own worst critics. We can be very hard on ourselves. And so for me, that was, like that continuing that weak self-concept of not likable, not good enough, not able to make friends, which led for me and leads to a fearful reaction combined with emotions, which is a lot of stress. And it did continue to feed that fear in my life of not being able to be liked outside of sport, and which then reinforced at the top of that loop, or the top left corner there, that negative behavior. And so the stress led to me of feeling I need to adjust who I am to be liked by other people. And that's the only way I'm going to be able to make friends. So that was the negative behavior that I was making, because it was compromising who I am or who I'm supposed to be, and it was stopping me from achieving my full potential. And because that's how I behaved and then started to make friends because of it, it started to reinforce that false belief. Okay, I can't make friends outside of this because of these self-doubts I have inside myself. I would negative self-talk inwardly in myself, in my head, which led to more stress, continued that negative behavior, and just went round and round until I decided to make a change. So that's a very quick kind of look at the fear loop. And I mean, we could go into a lot more detail, but again, trying to keep these videos a little more contained in length. But you can see how quickly things can spiral out of control if we're not careful, if we're not mindful. And it wasn't until going through the Unbeatable Mind process and learning some of those skills through Mark Devine, a former Navy SEAL, that I was able to really start recognizing how fear truly played a role in my life, in my development, in growing up, and how it was preventing me from being who I know I could and can and want to be. So again, last week we talked a little bit about the fear and recognizing that. This week or over the next couple of weeks, I encourage you to take an additional 3 to 4 to 5 minutes instead of just now. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say instead. On top of recognizing where fear is, spend a little extra time now thinking about where is that coming from? Why is that here? Usually these things are deep kind of in our subconscious. It's something that's happened when we were a kid. Maybe it was something that we were taught or ingrained at a young age. But again, it's something that's just sitting there that isn't true, that is holding you or holding us back. And it's not until we dig a little bit deeper and look for the reason, look for the root of why this is happening, that we can start making a real change. Otherwise, if we don't acknowledge that, if we don't go towards that process, it's just going to keep feeding itself and feeding itself. Eventually, hopefully we get to a point where we're just sick and tired of it and we want to make that change and make that adjustment, and I encourage you to do so. But it's not until we take the time to really look at it and analyze and spend the time with ourselves to better ourselves. So again, this can be a personal relationship, this can be a character trait, this can be something for your business, it can be something, something in your life, not necessarily just an emotion or something you're feeling, but can relate to a lot of areas. So again, take the time to look at what the limiting factors are, to look at how fear is playing a role, to recognize how you're in that loop, where you are in that loop. And then again, in 2 weeks from now, we're going to teach and learn and go through the process of how to cut that loop in half, start feeding courage into our lives so that we can be strong, we can be powerful, we can be courageous, and then truly start to achieve and maximize our full potential. And it is quite a fulfilling process and feeling when you can, and a freeing process as well. So let's stop being trapped. Let's go out there, let's be our best, take some time. You're worth it, you deserve it, whatever it's for. I wish you a great day and thanks for joining us.